Welcome, welcome back, dummy audience. I'm Tal, the Billy Bunny reading you a story, accompanied by the silly hammy named Knightley. Last time on Just Like a Date
Mhm.
Sent by Pearl, we had an epic battle with Katashi's old friend Minoru and his crew. Katashi is now beaten and bloody and leans on you as you call for your host mother Makoto for help. Now we're jumping straight into chapter 12, Hospital Visit, continuing Katashi's route.
All
Whew.
right. It took a while, but you managed to drag Katashi's bruised and bloodied body all the way to your home. It wasn't easy. The guy was pretty heavy, but you'd be damned if you left him to bleed out on the side of some road. Actually, you were surprised he'd managed to stay conscious for as long as he did. Katashi was able to stay conscious even after you made it to the entrance of your house, and even
Mm.
after Makoto swung the door open and gathered the both of you up and sat Katashi down on your couch, covered completely in old towels to keep him from staining it. Katashi winced and lightly groaned as Makoto gently laid him down, and it was only then that he fully lost consciousness. Makoto didn't pay you much mind as she fussed over Katashi's wounds, but Kana sure did, and she did not look happy. Hey, what the hell is going on? Kana exclaimed as soon as she noticed what was going on. She grasped your face in her hands and turned around from side to side. Her hands felt pleasantly cold on the bruise that was no doubt forming on your skin. She let out a strangled cry
Oh.
when she noticed the bruises marring your neck. What happened? You weren't sure what answer to give her. Kana had been so against pursuing a relationship with the Katashi for this exact reason, and now you would confirm her fears. When you didn't give an immediate answer, Kana started lightly shaking you back and forth. You could see tears pooling in her eyes, and you couldn't help but feel guilty. Kana-chan, Makoto interrupted, get me some ice. Kana's mouth fell open. But Kana-chan, Kana, ice, now. Makoto snapped. Kana wordlessly trailed into the kitchen, a small frown on her face. Hey, come here. I need your help with this. The fact that Makoto needed your help. Oh no, that was Makoto. The fact that Makoto needed your help really didn't make you feel too confident about Katashi's condition. Still, you approached the couch and peered down at Katashi. His breathing was peaceful. If it weren't for all the bruises, he would have looked like he was sleeping.
What is it? You asked.
Makoto dabbed at a particularly nasty wound with a wet towel and answered, Hold his hand.
What?
Yeah, hold his hand. She turned and smiled at you. It'll put him at ease. You didn't see how that would be true, but you did as asked anyway. Unlike Kana's hands, Katashi's were pretty warm. They were calloused and a bit rough in your own, and his knuckles were completely shredded, but it felt sort of nice in a weird way.
Is he gonna be okay? You asked.
Kana entered the room with a bag of ice and waited in the doorway to hear the answer too. Makoto sighed. It's hard to tell. I've bandaged a lot of wounds before, but, well, I'll say this. He doesn't have any broken bones, so that's lucky. I have no idea if he has a concussion or internal bleeding, though. He needs to see a doctor. You flinched. This was all your fault, you replied.
He said he can't afford that.
Hana scoffed and put the bag of ice on Katashi's stomach. That sucks and all, but it's either some money or his life. You frowned at her, but opted not to reply. Makoto finished bandaging the last of Katashi's visible wounds and stood up. Leave the decision to his mother. I'm going to give her a call right away, and she can decide what she'd like to do, Makoto said. She left the room, presumably to make that call, though you weren't sure how she got that number. You were left with Kana, an unconscious Katashi, and a Hana no one else could see. I warned you this could happen, Kana frowned.
I don't need to hear this right now. You replied.
Hana didn't say anything else. She just peered down at Katashi with a look of curiosity and disdain. She finally asked, What's so great about him anyway?
Why do you dislike him so much? You countered. He hasn't done anything to warrant this.
He got you beat up, right? Kana argued.
It wasn't his fault. You snapped. I was the one who took a shortcut through the forest when I really shouldn't have. I was the one who couldn't protect myself. If anything, it's my fault he's even in this condition.
Hana stared you down, eyes begging you for more information. When you didn't say anything, she asked, What happened? Tell me exactly. It wasn't your business telling Kana the complexities of the interpersonal relationship between Minoru and Katashi, but you could tell her what ended up happening to you.
One of Katashi's enemies made me come with him. He had a bunch of lackeys with him, so I couldn't run away. And Katashi had to come save me. And his enemy threatened to hurt me if Katashi didn't let himself get beat up. That's pretty much what happened till I fought off the delinquents holding me. Though, as you can see, it didn't go perfectly, you explained.
Kana laughed a bit humorlessly. He really does care about you, doesn't he?
Yeah, I guess he does, you replied, staring down at Katashi's face.
Yeah. What about you? Do you care about him? Kana asked. He wanted to tell her everything. Tell her about Hana, the well, and Benzai 10, but there was no way she would believe you. Even if she did, it wouldn't be fair to involve her in this mess, much as you were tempted. You sighed.
Yeah, yeah, I do.
Hana took a deep breath. Okay.
That's it? Just okay? You raised an eyebrow.
I don't have anything else to say. You would never figure her out, would you? Makoto re-entered the room and said, Katashi's mother is on her way. She's going to drag him to a hospital where, in her words, he should have gone to begin with. He winced. Hopefully the woman wasn't angry with you for not taking Katashi to a doctor immediately. He told you not to, but maybe you should have just ignored him. You didn't have too long to stew over it because within minutes the buzzer went off and Makoto was opening the door to accommodate a frantic
Aw.
looking woman. She was beautiful, with long black hair, not a single gray hair in sight. If you didn't know any better, you would say she was only brushing 30.
Ooh.
Hitashi's mother sighed in relief when she saw her son's peaceful form, and she turned to Makoto.
Ah, you did a great
Um,
job patching him
did you
up.
want me to be Hitashi's mom? Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're very welcome, Makoto replied, flushing a bit at the praise.
Oh
Oh my gosh.
my gosh,
Do you need any
ladies?
help getting him out?
No.
Ladies,
Mothers? Anyway. No, no, thank you, Katashi's mother replied.
You backed up at her approach, and in a display of impressive strength, the woman grabbed her son by the arm and wrenched him over her back.
Whoa.
You doubted it would be comfortable to carry him like that, but she looked like she was managing just
Oh
fine.
my god,
You
women?
glanced at Kana. She seemed just as impressed as you did. Yeah, awakening. Get some kind of. I sure hope this doesn't awaken anything in me. She's mother looked like she was about to leave, but she paused at the last second to give you a look.
Are you Katashi's girlfriend?
Your eyes almost bulged out of your head. They widened so much with shock.
Um, I mean, no? She nodded. I see. Tell me, was this that red-headed brat again? You mean Minoru? You asked. Yes. Him. Katashi's mother spat. I've had enough of his antics. I'm sorry you had to get dragged into this.
You blinked. But it wasn't. But was your. But what it? But it was your fault that this happened. Why was she apologizing to you? Before you had an opportunity to explain the situation, the woman was already dragging her son out the door, and you couldn't. You just have to try to talk to Katashi's mother about this later. You collapsed onto the couch, bloody towels be damned, and buried your face in your hands. Kana wrapped her arms around you, and the two of you sat in silence.
Aww. As it turned out, Katashi had gotten lucky and avoided any internal bleeding. Not so unfortunately, Makoto had missed something in her diagnosis, and turns out Katashi not only suffered some severely bruised ribs, but also a couple of broken knuckles and a fracture in his arm. Thankfully,
Oh.
Thankfully, his timely visit to the hospital minimalized any additional damage, but he still had to stay a few days for rest and observation. You didn't really get why he couldn't come home and rest there, but you weren't going to question it. About 2 days after the big fight, you decided to go visit him in the hospital after school. You knew he'd be released the following day, but the poor guy was probably lonely in there, and you wanted to deliver him some missed homework and notes. Ah, jeez. Um, as well as some as well as some homemade onigiri, some filled with salted salmon, one filled with umeboshi, oh crap, umabashi, and the last one filled with dried kelp. You made them all on your own, without Makoto's assistance for once, and you're positive it was all edible because you tasted everything. Katashi could no doubt dislike the homework, but at least you'd entice him with food. You had to skip kendo practice for a bit, but your clubmates were pretty understanding. Ever since you showed up with the hideous bruise on your face and marks around your neck, they'd been a lot kinder towards you. It was more convenient, yes, but annoying that it only happened once you showed up to practice injured. You tried not to think about Suzuha and Kirie's bad reactions to your injuries. Kana had been generous enough to keep the whole thing under wraps, but that didn't stop Suzuha from pressing for details or Kirie from occasionally pulling you off to the side and assuring you that you could trust her with anything. It wasn't like you didn't want to tell him.
Friends care about us.
My God, the besties care. It wasn't like you didn't want to tell them, but you were also worried about how they react. If they blamed Katashi for what happened like Kana did, then it wasn't improbable that they'd get involved and ruin your chances of Katashi falling for you. No, in a few days, if all went well, they'd forget about this anyway. It could wait until then. Oh my God. Okay, no. They're just probably talking about the
Yeah,
ever-changing
yeah.
mindset.
That's not foreshadowing anything.
No. You found yourself hovering outside Katashi's hospital room. Did you just walk in? If he was mad at you, what if he was mad at you for ending up in the hospital? You weren't the one who took him there, but still, what if he was mad at you for getting him beat up? You couldn't blame him. He took a deep breath. No matter nowhere to go but up, or well, in. You swung open the door, maybe a bit more forceful than necessary. You really need to work on that. Katashi was inside, lying in bed, reading manga. But as soon as he noticed who it was, the manga disappeared before he could get a good look at what he was reading. Pity, it looked colorful. It might have been interesting. He looked surprised you were even there, which made you feel worse.
Hey, I brought your homework and some notes, you offered lamely.
Katashi stared at you
Kata-
blankly.
Oh, and some onigiri.
You set your bag on the ground and approached Katashi, your arms practically overflowing with the stuff you were carrying. You set it down on his bedside table and then just stood awkwardly for a minute staring him down. He sighed. Sit down. You didn't need to be told twice. You dragged a nearby chair to his bedside and sat.
So the onigiri has bushis.
Why are you really here? Katashi asked. He looked away from you to stare at the ceiling. From his position, he looked exhausted. There were bags under his eyes, though they didn't stand out much compared to the other purple marks on his face. I'm surprised you even... Oh. I'm surprised you even want to be around me anymore. You paused.
Why wouldn't I want to be around you anymore?
He gave you an unimpressed look and replied, Because it's my fault you got dragged into that whole mess.
Your fault, you exclaimed. If anything, it was my fault. If it weren't for me, you wouldn't have gotten beaten so bad. It's my fault I decided to take that stupid shortcut and didn't even bring anything to protect myself with.
Katashi snorted, but there was no humor in it. That rat bastard brought backup. Even if you brought your sword, it wouldn't have made a difference. I should have never let you walk home by yourself. Should have never let you get close to me. Oh. I should have never let you walk home by yourself. Should have never let you get close to me to begin with. You felt a cold jolt shock through your chest. Why did that hurt so bad to hear? Yeah, if he decided to give up on his feelings, it would be a problem, but it felt much, much worse than that. He took a deep breath, but before he could say anything, Katashi said, I think you should go. The words got caught in your throat. You could only squeak out.
What?
You shouldn't be around me, Katashi explained. You looked down at your lap, fiddling with your hands before responding.
No.
What? Katashi blinked.
You heard me. I'm not leaving. You stood up. I may have stood up just now, but it's not to leave.
Why not? Katashi asked.
Because, damn it, as much as I feel bad about what happened, I'm not going to stop caring about you. It doesn't matter if it was your fault or my fault that this happened. It doesn't change the fact that you're important to me and I'm not letting you go. You exclaimed. She keeps talking, so I'm gonna go a little bit further.
Go for it.
Once you realized what you said, you flushed and started sputtering in an effort to rearrange your statement. What I meant was, we shouldn't stop being, friends because of some jerk. I mean, it's neither of our faults that Minoru was such a prick, right? We shouldn't let his actions, dictate our lives.
Katashi sighed, but he was smiling a bit. It was so tiny you almost didn't register it. He replied, You're too stubborn to distance myself from anyway.
Good, you shouted. Well, not that you think that... Not good that you think I'm stubborn, but good
You
that...
were wrong about one thing, though, Katashi interrupted.
What's that? You asked.
It's my fault that Minoru is the way he is, Katashi replied. He has no excuse for some of the shit he's caused, but I can only blame myself. You plopped back on your seat and asked.
Did you explain it to me?
I guess you deserve to know after being dragged into it, Katashi grumbled. You may not like me after finding out. You frowned.
I don't know about that. Minotaur already explained his side of the story. Now it's your turn.
Katashi leaned back on his pillows, looking troubled and probably in a lot of pain. Without thinking, you grabbed his hand to offer your support. He looked surprised, but also a bit pleased, if you're reading it
Mm.
right. Minoru, Kaz, and I all went to middle school together. Minoru and I were friends, practically from day one. We had a lot in common, you know. After my dad died, I started getting a lot more into fights. Minoru was right there with me the whole way, but I don't think he was doing it to blow off steam, or so people wouldn't mess with him. He really enjoyed it. He would beat up on people that didn't want to fight back. I knew it was wrong, but I didn't care back then. It felt like he was the only one really there for me, who had my back, so I just ignored it. We both started getting really bad reputations, and more dangerous people tried to pick fights. It was about then that Kaz tried to fight me. I destroyed him, but we became friends after that, Katashi explained. He paused, looking like the memory was causing him pain, so you squeezed his hand to urge him on. He continued. For a while, things were fine. All three of us got along well enough, and Minoru even showed us that little abandoned house. It felt really good to have a place to get away to. I love my mom, but when she wasn't working, she would just sob for hours, and it was hard to be near her like that. All three of us decided on bracelets to show our loyalty. All of us had different colors. Kaz was blue, mine was green, and Minoru's was red. We all have the same bead, with the kanji for life. But that shit hit the fan sooner or later, and we got approached by a much, much bigger gang. It was the one Tam was in at the time. We wanted a fight, or they wanted a fight, and Kaz and I knew it would be too much, but we wanted to get out of here. But Minoru wouldn't back down.
What happened next? You asked softly.
Katashi swallowed hard. He looked upset and angry. We couldn't just have him. We couldn't just leave him there. But they outnumbered us. I told Minoru to run, but he wouldn't listen. Called us cowards. Kaz and I ran. I wanted to get some help, but by the time I did, the damage had already been done. Minoru had been beaten half to death and left for dead. He was in the hospital for weeks after that, and he wouldn't let anyone see him. One day I go back to the house and I see Minoru left his bracelet. The bastard's been picking fights with us ever since, but this time he's gone too far. Katashi growled. Katashi was visibly shaking, and you weren't sure what to tell him to make him feel better about the whole situation. So you did what you would normally do to comfort Kana. You leaned over his bedside and wrapped your arms around his neck. You made sure to be gentle, considering his injuries, and he tentatively returned your hug by putting his arm around your waist. You stayed like that for what felt like forever, but you didn't mind even though it was uncomfortable for your back. Finally, he released you, and you didn't want to be awkward, so you removed yourself as well and took back your seat.
What happened with Minoru? That wasn't your fault, right? You asked.
If I'd stayed and fought with him, maybe.
What? Maybe you'd still be friends? You snapped. Would you even want to be friends with someone who beats up people just for fun? Who did horrible things to both of us?
No, Katashi frowned. But this would have never happened.
Yeah, and who knows what would have happened if you'd stayed in that toxic friendship. Maybe Minoru would have accidentally gotten you killed. Maybe you'd have accidentally done something way worse than just fighting. Who knows if we would have even met at all? You did all you could. Minoru was the one who didn't want to listen to reason. He was the one who stayed in a losing fight. You gave him every opportunity, and he refused to take it. That's not your fault, he replied.
I see, Katashi replied.
Oof.
Thank you. Well, that was unexpected.
Oh, you're welcome, you exclaimed.
What kind of onigiri were these again? He asked.
Umibashi, salted salmon, and dried kelp, he replied.
Katashi immediately took the umabashi. I hate that this is the one that he took. And we have to say it. Katashi immediately took the umabashi one and started to eat. He looked like he was savoring the flavor. You didn't know the hospital food was how the hospital food was, but it couldn't have been great since he was snarfing down your onigiri like it was his last meal.
I'd say I'd bring you more, but since you're getting checked out tomorrow, I guess there's no point.
Katashi reached his hand out to brush against the bruise on your face. Will you be at school tomorrow?
Don't have much of a choice, he shrugged.
Wait for me after school, Katashi said.
Wow, usually it's you waiting for me after school, you exclaimed.
I already told you I have...
Business, you finished for him.
Stop being bratty.
You're the one being bratty.
Hey,
Bill, you sure you want to go to school tomorrow? I mean, you barely go to school, and that's when you're not severely injured, you said.
I'm not going to class, Katashi replied. Just wait for me after school.
All right, I will.
He ruffled your hair and said, Good. Oh, another chapter done! And oh my god! Ladies and gentlemen, next chapter is gonna be the last one. For not for the series, but for
Katashi?
for my mans.
Damn, how are you will live on?
How will I live on? I have no idea. Maybe I'll just stop existing after
I don't know.
the next
You were
chapter.
really excited to do these chapters because we were talking to Katashi, and now that we're not going to be talking to Katashi as much,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to rope you into this.
I mean, I like Minoru. Not Minoru. Oh, well, yes, I do like Minoru. He's an asshole. And he's got red hair. But I like Mamoru rather. The
Okay.
artist
We'll have to
senpai.
figure out how to pronounce his name too.
Mamoru. I
Yeah.
think I got it. He's
Mamoru? Yeah.
he's kind of nice, but he's no standout like Katashi.
Ugh.
And I believe after that we're into Atsushi's route, and then after that the unwritten routes for
My
uh
stomach.
ooh, your tummy.
My tummy is making the gurglies. I'm gonna get something to eat before we make the next chapter.
Okay. Oh, well, that'll be the end of this chapter. Hope you had fun. Next, we'll be reading chapter 13, whatever that is. And don't forget that there are links to socials and this story in the description. Any last words, Niley?
Yay! Bye!